G'day Reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy and you're watching Gallery Aquatica TV. So one of the most common causes of disease that we see in fish that come into the store or at clients' tanks, or you'll even see this sometimes with fish on the reef, are external flukes. Now flukes is actually a term, it's a common name that's given to a group of external parasites that are also known as monogenians. Now these monogenians are a type of flatworm, so they're related to liver flukes and intestinal worms such as tapeworm, but fish flukes will typically affect the external surfaces of the fish, including the gills. Now sometimes these parasites can be quite large, and you'll actually sometimes be able to visibly see them, and you can see the effects quite commonly on fish. Sometimes fish that are affected by worms, by flukes I should say, will show markings where the worm has actually attached onto the fish. And the way that they attach onto the fish is with a set of hooks around their mouth, which will dig into the fish, allow them to attach, and these hooks and the actual feeding action of the worm will cause physical damage to the fish. So we have a fish that we've seen come into the store with flukes, monogenians. There's one which is actually on the eyeball, which I'll show you, and it is quite clear that this is the problem. Now we'll just see if he comes out to the front. It's actually a trigger fish, and usually he's right up the front, and it's this right eyeball. Now the fact that he has a fluke on his eyeball is probably a good indication that there's more flukes on his body. Now, one of the things about flukes is that they are very host specific, and what that means is that a fluke which will attack this trigger is very unlikely to spread to the other fish in the tank. Now, this is an important thing to consider when you're looking at the treatment of this sort of problem. And it's very different to problems such as protozoan problems, so white spot and velvet. Typically, they're not host specific, and so a velvet or a white spot outbreak can potentially go through the entire system. Flukes are very host specific. So really, it would only be if we had if we only had the same species triggerfish in the tank, that it would be a problem. However, the damage that the flukes can do, and the fact that they irritate the fish and it's just not ideal, is the reason why we're going to treat this fish today. The treatment that we're going to use for flukes on this triggerfish is a freshwater bath. Now I'll show you the way that we set up the freshwater bath in a minute, but a freshwater bath really is a treatment that should only be used for fish. You never use a freshwater dip for the corals or other invertebrates. And the way that a freshwater bath works is the change in the osmotic potential affects the parasite more quickly than it affects the fish. And so it's a little bit about timing. You need to ensure that the fish is only in the dip for the right amount of time, and long enough that it affects the parasite and the fish is fine. So we always keep a close eye on the fish to ensure that it's not too stressed, and I like to ensure that I can easily put the fish back into the tank if required. So anyway, this is the fish that we're going to treat. Clearly has a fluke on its right eyeball, and now we'll show you exactly how we go about setting up the freshwater bath. So it's very important that when you use a freshwater bath to treat a fish, that you're careful that you don't change the fish's temperature or pH too quickly. So what we've done, I've had this, it's a bucket of RO water. I've had it sitting in the sump because this is the easiest way for me to ensure that the temperature of the bath water is going to be the same as the temperature in the tank. Now another way of doing this would be with a heater and a thermometer in the tank, a thermometer in the bath, but given that we've got a nice open sump, this is the best way for me to do it. So the next thing we have to consider is the pH of the water. Whilst the fish are going to be going through a change in their salinity, they can't handle a change in the pH. So we need to adjust the pH of the bath water. And the way I'm going to do it today, I'm going to take a sample of water from the system that the fish is in, and I'm going to just use a basic API high range test kit. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to use this as the standard to which I mix up the bath water. So at the moment, it's probably a pH of about, I'm going to say 8.2 sort of thing. However, the RO water, so I'll do a test before any adjustments. This will give us an idea. But without any buffer added, the RO water is going to be very different. Given that this pH test kit only goes, I think, down to 7.8 or so, that is off the chart. Which means that we have to bring the pH of this water up to be the same as the pH of the system. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to add some pH buffer. So this is a buffer I'm going to use today. And you only need a very small amount of buffer to raise the pH. So that's literally all I'm going to use to start off with. I'll add that to the water. It's probably not going to be quite enough. However, this will be a start. We can always add more if we need. This is all the time it takes for the buffer to mix in with the RO water. So now I'm going to test this. And then compare it to our sample. Alright, that still looks a bit low, and in fact hasn't really gone up much at all, so I well undershot it. I'll do the same thing again, go a little bit harder this time. Let that mix in. Okay, so we're ready for the second try at getting the pH right. This looks a little bit closer. Oh. Okay. So we've actually well overshot pH. So this is what we're aiming for. The more sort of pinky purple it goes, the higher the pH. So what I'll probably do is dilute this back with some more RO. So this process can take a few times to mix up the water with either RO to drop it or buffer to raise it. But we really want a sample of water which is exact same pH as the water from the system. So we'll try again. When you overshoot the pH and make it too high, the easiest way is to just dilute it back with a bit of RO. I'll take out 1 jug worth, and this is just RO water. I'll put in about a jug worth again. Bearing in mind, of course, that we're really looking to have the same temperature in the system as the water here, and if the RO water is too cold or too warm, that could be a problem. But I'm hoping that this is going to be the right pH. Okay. So that is pretty close. There'd be at least 1 point of a difference out of it, but it's fine. So he's been, the triggerfish has been swimming up high in the tank. I don't think he's been fed today, but he's always, you know, interested in food. So I'm going to use that to my advantage, and hopefully I'll be able to get him in one quick motion, like that. So I'm going to put him straight into the bath. So you need to be careful that fish don't jump out when they're in a bath. Obviously it's a stressful condition for him. And the other thing you have to be careful of with triggerfish is that sometimes they can bite. The last time I freshwater bathed a triggerfish, he bit me pretty bad. So what I'm doing now, I'm going to give him probably between 30 seconds to a minute, minute and a half sort of thing, keeping an eye on his condition. This is quite normal for triggerfish. They'll often lay on their side. Whilst he's certainly stressing, this doesn't worry me in particular, but I'm also looking to see for the flukes on his body, because what will happen when the flukes start to become affected by the dip, the bath, they'll actually go opaque, and I can quite clearly see the fluke on his eye, which is loose and it's gone opaque, and there's another one on his tail. There's another fluke on the top side of his tail, and are there any others? So it looks like it's a very low infestation. There might be more on the other side, but certainly only two that I can see here. Oh! Might get a smaller net. So the dip doesn't really kill the fluke straight away, and so sometimes you actually have to just sort of give them a bit of a hand to come off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cradle him in the net. Oops. And I'm actually going to rub or slightly rub the fluke off the eyeball. Well, actually this one looks like it's come off. That's good. Sometimes they slip below the eye socket, but no, that one's actually come off, so that's good. Oops. The one on the tail may have come off as well. Alright, so this is going quite well, but typically you'll see the parasites on the body of the fish, so I just gently rub them off. Sometimes you'll actually feel them, they can be that big. Oops. I just want to do this the other side. Alright. Well, I think that's it. I can't see any more flukes, so just the two. So he's actually right to put straight back into the tank. So that's worked out really well. He'll stress for a little bit, he'll probably hide under a rock, but he'll definitely be fine. Something else that I would generally do after I've removed or done a freshwater bath is I'll just check the bucket. These things are really small and it's hard to see, but just here is one of the flukes. That might actually, yeah, that might be the other one there. But this is him just here. And there'll be a second one in there as well. So anyway, that's a process for freshwater bathing fish. Really, it's a treatment that I only use for flukes. It's not something I typically use for protozoan infestations, and I certainly never freshwater bath any invertebrates, corals, or the like. but when done properly with pH adjustment and temperature adjustment, it's a very safe and easy treatment for flukes, and certainly it's something which is not as much a problem for a whole system of fish, but certainly can be very damaging to an individual fish. So it's a really important sort of treatment to use when it's required. Anyway, thank you for watching Gallery Aquatica, and hopefully you've learned something, and stay tuned for more videos. So that's our video for today. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe as well. We'll be putting out videos every week showing a new tank with new products. There's going to be lots in all the videos. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and keep on reefing.